jammed. You were all over
Park on
the
the
grass.
grass.
Over on the
Yeah.
the Midway Village. Yeah.
Yeah, that's what I need. I think so.
It's a process.
There's not a bad shot there.
No, there is not a bad shot. Oh, she's too pretty to you mean in terms of parts?
That she was. She could be a diva.
That's my theory. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm good.
Right. Is this yours? No, I think it's yours. There are a few birthdays I can hang on to. Everyone will like my own kids. My mom. Yeah.
I've been saying she was 23.
Well, that's my trouble. Is my birthday's late in the year, so I will oftentimes say I'm turning whatever it's going to be, and so I make myself that age about a year early. It's in September, but you know, starting now, you're like, well, I'm going to be 57. Yes, yeah, you're always adding an extra year on. And then I'm like, wait, no, I'm not that old.
about, they know about the fact that there's a hole. But like somebody is,
Oh, yeah, no, the people I'm with will
from
definitely
the place where it is, right. The rules
Yeah, right. Yeah. Okay, I wrote a prayer for peace. That's fine.
We always have some problems.
Essential tremor and COPD.
civics.
Hammer toes and trigger fingers.
Wow, yeah, really weird. See, think dark is. What do you think dark is? Yeah, I told you it has dark vibes.
Good morning. Welcome, everybody. We're going to open with our hymn of the month, number 128, For All That Is Our Life, as we sing of human need, service to others, and joys and sorrows that we share. This hymn expresses our theme of the month, paying attention. Let us rise in body or in spirit together. We're so glad that each and every one of you is here today, just as you are, with all that you love and all that has brought you to this space. I'm Reverend Brett, and my pronouns are he, him. Our worship team this morning is Tim, our music director, Lindsay, our director of religious education, our talented unicantors, and Barb, our worship associate this morning. Autumn and Reverend Joyce are off this morning, and Keith is filling in on the tech deck. I am so thrilled to be able to introduce this morning's guest preacher, Dr. Mary Lamb Shelden. She is a lifelong second-generation Unitarian Universalist, a credentialed religious educator, and she holds a spiritual direction certificate from Meadville Lombard. She has attended 8 UU congregations over the course of her life, 2 as a young person, 4 as a lay leader, and 2 serving as a religious professional. And one of those happened to be the Unitarian Church of Evanston, where she and I served together for many years. Dr. Shelden, Mary, also teaches college writing and the freshman seminar at Aurora University and has written about the Transcendentalist Circle. She and Margie, her beloved longtime partner, and their rescue pup, Penny, live across the road from Lake in the Hills Fen, a 400-acre preserve of restored prairie. Welcome. As always, do join us for coffee after the service. Our Faith in Action teams are providing hospitality today. If you're online, and let's say hello to everybody, wave at the camera, it's over on the organ. Do like, comment, and share this worship service. If today is your first day worshiping with us, online or in person, we're thrilled that you are here, and let us know who you are so that we can be in touch.
I'm Barb Basai, and my pronouns are she, her, hers. We gather today on the ancestral lands of the Ho-Chunk and Potawatomi peoples, and we are in deep gratitude for the privilege of being on this sacred ground. This land, this nation, our faith, and our lives are shaped by a complex history of oppression, freedom, resistance, migration, conflict, justice, and hope. From these intertwined legacies, we learn, reflect, seek healing, offer gratitude, and strive to create a world that will reflect the choices we make for future generations. We gather today for worship, and as we gather, we join in our sacred ritual. The flaming chalice is the symbol of our faith, a beacon of truth, a fire for justice, a warmth for the soul. One of our children, Kat, will light our chalice today, or adult children of another member. Kat is home on spring break, and she's been working hard at college. She just earned a 99% on a biology exam. Let us speak together the covenant of our church. Love is the spirit of this church, and reason is its guide. To dwell together in peace, to seek truth in freedom, and to serve human need. This is our covenant. Now let's sing together a chalice response song.
As we settle into our time together, we share our prayers of the people, the naming of joy and sorrow, the holding in our hearts of those we love. We hold in our hearts all those recovering from illnesses and experiencing maladies of body or soul. May mercy and healing attend them. We send our prayers to all those who are suffering because of the war in the Middle East, especially those grieving loved ones, those living in fear, those displaced from their homes. Every loss of life is a tragedy. May there be protection for civilians, comfort for the bereaved, healing for the wounded, and a swift turn toward justice, restraint, and lasting peace. And finally, I invite you in this space to name those aloud or in silence who you are holding in your hearts. Let us turn now and greet each other in fellowship this morning.
The words of our invocation this morning come to us from the Reverend Manish Mishra Marsetti. River Call. Between rocking the boat and sitting down, between stirring things up and peaceably going along, we find ourselves here in community, each called from many different journeys, many different life paths onto this river road. Some are here because the rocking of the boat has been too much tumult, too much uncertainty, too much pain. Some are here with questions about where the boat is going, how best to steer it, where this journey ends. Others are here as lovers of the journey, lovers of life itself. Here in front, beside, behind, each a passenger, each a captain, doing the best we can. Rest here in your boat with me, the river calls. Listen to how I flow, the sound of life coursing all around you. Let the current hold you. Let the current guide you. The river that gently flows through your soul whispers, "Come, let us worship."
I'm Lindsay, your Director of Religious Education, and my pronouns are she and her. Working with our children and youth today are Liz in the nursery, Kim and Sandy with the 1st through 6th grade group, which will be headed outside, and Rebecca and myself with the youth group. As a reminder, the sound of children is always welcome here, but please do silence your electronic devices. Our story this morning is The Kindness of Lomain by Karin Solveig Andersen. My friend Marcy and her boyfriend Brian recently ate dinner at a local Chinese restaurant. As they enjoyed a plate of lo mein, engrossed in conversation, a hand reached down and ushered away their platter of noodles. A voice, quick and agitated, mumbled, "Sorry," and a thin, poorly dressed woman left the restaurant with their plate of lo mein. In astonishment, they watched her walk down the street, holding the plate with the flat of her hand as she stuffed noodles into her mouth, slapping sharply against her face. The owner realized what had happened and darted out the front door, chasing after the noodle thief. He stood firmly in front of her, blocking her way and grabbing a side of the plate. A struggle ensued. Noodles slid uneasily from one side to the other, slopping over the edge. He surged forward and pulled with a heroic, strong-arm attempt to retrieve his plate. The woman's fingers slid from the plate. Noodles flew. They flopped pathetically on the sidewalk. Left empty-handed with soggy, contaminated noodles at her feet, the woman stood with arms hung dejectedly at her side. The owner walked victoriously back to the restaurant with the soiled plate in hand. My friends were given a new heaping plate of lo mein, although they had already consumed half of the stolen plate. A stream of apology in Chinese came from the proprietor. Unable to eat anymore, they asked to have the noodles wrapped up and set off to see their movie. A block later, they happened upon the lo mein thief. The woman was hypercharged. She simultaneously cried, convulsed, and shouted at a man who rapidly retreated from her side. My friend, unsure what to do, listened to her boyfriend's plea to just walk away. But she didn't. Instead, she walked over to the thief and said, "We haven't formally met, but about 10 minutes ago, you were interested in our noodles? They gave us some new ones. Are you still hungry?" The woman nodded and extended her bony arms. She took the container in her hands, bowed ever so slightly, and murmured, "Thank you, you're very kind." What makes us walk away from discomfort or stay? You could say a lot about my friend's story, a lot about generosity, kindness, attention, and thievery. I'm more interested in what motivates us to confront that which makes us uncomfortable and make us look at the guts and grit of decisions. The choices to not address things that are uncomfortable, uneasy, unbalanced, unnatural, unbelievable. When our foundations start to shake, we can feel the tremors move up our legs and into our torsos, and we want more than anything to make it stop. Anyhow, anyway. My friend Marcy could feel herself shake. I know because she told me so, but she chose not to walk away. She dealt with uncomfortableness. She held firm in the muck. Sometimes that's all we need or can do to get to the other side, the side where foundations are firm and stable, where generosity, comfort, and kindness reside. And if you'll join us in singing the first verse of This Little Light of Mine, we'll head to our various religious education locations.
I hope that everybody is subscribed to Kairos, our weekly newsletter. Be sure to read it for announcements about upcoming events and activities. And here are some things that the staff would like to point out. Seder planning is underway. Please save the date for our family-friendly celebration here on Tuesday, April 7th. It is Teresa with the clipboard who is taking signups. We'll share a potluck meal and the Passover story of moving from oppression to freedom. Please join us on Wednesday, April 8th, for Bad Faith: How Religion is Weaponized Against Democracy, featuring Dr. Andrew Ward, Assistant Professor at Tulane University. We'll look at the mythologies of white Christian nationalism and how distorted theory and selective biblical interpretation can be used for political power. We will talk about a truthful, compassionate response. Sign up with the QR code on the screen. Well, no, it's not up there, but or pick up a flyer or register in Kairos. Please bring a friend. We have 65 people registered so far. Our goal is 100. An informed community is harder to divide, and that is how we, in part, protect our society of pluralism and democracy. Each month, we'll be highlighting the activities of one of our Faith in Action teams for March. It is our Eco-Justice team. And so I want to invite Barb up to come up and tell you what they are doing. No, John is going to come up.
Morning. I'm not Barb. My name is John McGinty, and my pronouns are he and him. I want to thank you to all of those who participated in our spring equinox celebration. That was our wonderful Wednesday program last Thursday. I was home keeping watch on this cold. It's still doing fine. We have two upcoming events we'd like to share with you this morning. As the weather warms and you begin to think about spring planting, which I used to, we encourage you to consider adding native plants to your yard. They're more sustainable and they require less water. The Rock River Valley Wild Ones chapter has their native plant sale starting. It's a great source for native plants, and the online sales open tomorrow, March 23rd. This coming Wednesday, March 25th, there's a community info session about a proposed data center here in Rockford. It will take place at the NIU Rockford campus, which is on East State Street across from Showplace 16, I believe. It'll be from 6 to 8 p.m. You can also attend on Zoom. Topics to be covered include environmental and community impacts, what we know and don't know about the Rockford Data Center, the City of Rockford approval process, and more. The intended audience includes community members of the greater Rockford area who want to better understand the data center, kind of like you folks, and the development implications. More information about this event and the Wild Ones plant sale can be found on flyers in Deal Hall after the service. We'll now take up an offering to support the work of justice and mercy in the world. 80% of the non-specified funds collected today will go to the Natural Land Institute. They're a member-supported nonprofit organization dedicated to preserving land and natural diversity for future generations. Since 1958, the Natural Land Institute has protected, managed, and restored more than 18,000 acres throughout Illinois and southern Wisconsin, including prairies, forests, wetlands like Nigrin, and river corridors. We thank you for your generosity. The offering will now be given and most greatly received, and for the sake of the money counters, don't fold your bills. Thank you.
Thank you for your generosity. May what you give bring you joy. Let us turn our hearts now to a spirit of prayer and meditation. Spirit of life. In this time of intense warfare, can we hardly believe those words? We extend compassion to a world in need of peace. For our warfighters, we pray for safety and the courage to lead compassionately when called and to follow wisely when required. May they hear the dictates of conscience, which is a part of their solemn oath to codes of military justice, and to challenge illegal and immoral instructions. For our protesters and those who move for justice, we pray for safety and the courage to face off against those who would denigrate and harm others, who would harm others based on immigration status, social location, gender expression, or identity of any kind. We love everyone because we are everyone. For those who are experiencing oppression this hour, we pray for safety and the courage to wait for the bombs to stop, the search parties to tire, the federal agents and dogs to be called off. And for us, gathered here this morning in this place, in this time, striving to pay attention, in person or virtually, may we feel safe. May we feel empowered to move for justice. May we feel solidarity with each other and everyone, because we are everyone. Let's share a few moments of quiet so we may each reflect on the mystery of which we are a part, each in our own way. Blessed be, and amen. We didn't have one, and I informed him, and then we do have one. So, how about a testimony? How about a testimony?
As someone who may or may not be neurodivergent, I find that I sometimes hyper-focus on one thing or one task and other times I can be easily distracted or unfocused. I've also noticed that there are some things I really love to pay attention to, such as music, the words of a song, the rules of language, or my favorite foods. When I would look at the world around me, I might sometimes notice small details, but mostly I would look at the big picture, or things that made me feel a certain way, like golden leaves at the tops of trees against blue sky in the fall, or the shore of Lake Michigan. I learned at a young age to pay attention to teachers and choir directors. Not that I never got distracted, wink, wink. Some teachers called me a daydreamer. If it were a couple decades later, they would have had me evaluated for autism spectrum or something. And there have been times in my life when I have obsessed over a particular person, and I would notice things about them, such as details about their appearance, their habits and quirks, their interests, their style, mostly superficial stuff. But there are other things that I didn't like to pay attention to that I would avoid at all costs, like conflict. Believe it or not, I wasn't at all drawn to politics when I was young. I didn't pay attention to movies, professional sports, except for baseball and the Indy 500. Once I went to college, I stopped paying attention to those and stopped watching TV altogether, except for the news, mainly because of the solidarity movement going on in Poland, where I had relatives. Two of the people that I obsessed over are my two children. I have a son and daughter who are twins. Especially when they were young, I obsessed over them. But as they grew, conflict crept in. And looking back, I think that made me pay less attention to them and obsess more about the family dynamic and how uncomfortable it sometimes made me. At one point, when my son and daughter were little, some friends introduced Leah and me to the practice of nonviolent communication, or NVC. This practice is boiled down to 4 steps: observation, feelings, needs, and requests. That first step, observation, is often really hard for a lot of people when they first start out. Most people have a tendency to describe things in terms of their judgments or assumptions, but NVC asks us to only describe the events or observations in an unbiased way, as though an alien who knew nothing about how humans think were observing the situation. Now, I thought of myself as a fairly objective person, but when it comes to conflict, I realized how hard that could be to be objective. Like most people, I would phrase things in terms of stories and assumptions about other person's objectives. At one point, when we were at an NVC-themed family camp, conflict came up with my daughter at night, and I didn't want to bother anyone to talk about it because it was late, so I started journaling, as was suggested. I wrote and wrote and wrote until I got the judgments and assumptions out of the way. And then I was able to start writing down simple, unbiased observations. I guess I had to get my angry feelings out of the way first, so I could get to a place of curiosity, where I could pay attention to the things that were actually happening in the real world, not my interpretations of them in my head. Once I was able to do that, I was struck by how much easier it was to have a calm conversation with the person I was in conflict with. And oftentimes, I was amazed at how wrong my assumptions were about the other person's motives. This particular way of paying attention, I found, was absolutely golden in my relationships with my family members. Not that we never have conflict anymore, but I can trust that there's a process for peacemaking, and it starts with paying attention. I noticed I had a lot of ideas, perhaps myths, about how I expected relationships to go. But when I really paid attention to what others were saying when I was in conflict with them, it opened my eyes to some things that helped me see how the other person's behavior made sense in a way. That's when I realized how much I interpret what I observe. I realized how much I had been editorializing so much of the world around me. For me, the gift of learning to be a better observer has freed me to be more curious about people and have less judgment. This approach frees me from having to make up stories about the other person's motives and just listen and let them tell me. It gives me space to have greater clarity when they tell me their perspective. And that helps me be more relatable to others. My family members feel like I'm listening to them when I withhold judgment and simply hear them out. When I'm at my best, I pay attention not only to the situation in the moment or the events that led up to it, but also try to remember what I might have picked up about each person's emotional resources and how they might have been depleted over the last few days or hours. on a personal level, I've learned when I'm overwhelmed with despair, I actively look for reasons for hope. To put aside the distractions that our society throws at us and pay attention to what really matters, things that can bring us joy and hope. And that can help us understand our fellow human beings better, because I believe that understanding leads to more peaceful interactions.
Let us rise in body or spirit for our hymn, Voice Still and Small, number 391.
Good morning. I am Mary Lamb Shelden, she, her, and it's so lovely to be with you again this Sunday and for the first time in your pulpit. And also I'm just delighted to be preaching again alongside of Reverend Brett, a longtime friend and colleague and mentor. I reminded him that we only spent a year together at Evanston. It felt like a few years, but... In the story that Lindsay shared, author Karen Anderson is curious about what allows us to stay in discomfort. This is instructive in terms of what I mean by the inner teacher, the subject of my remarks this morning. The author is curious about what allows us to stay in discomfort, to attend to what is within us and act accordingly, rather than follow the more comfortable route of listening to outside voices, urging us towards some imagined, unexamined norm. Some might call that thing in this story Marcy's conscience or her intestinal fortitude, but especially as we witness Marcy leaning into this story, many might say she was attending to her inner teacher. The wise teacher, sage, or mentor is an archetype, a recurring, deeply ingrained element of myth, legend, and fable, so pervasive in our stories that it is widely thought to represent something fundamental to human experience and personality. So take a moment to notice. When I use the words wise teacher or sage, what image springs to mind? Do you see Gandalf or Dumbledore? Maybe Yoda or Obi-Wan? Maybe you see LeVar Burton or Rita Moreno or Mr. Hooper. Maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson or Ruth Bader Ginsburg. The sage is one of Carl Jung's 12 major archetypes, manifesting in an individual as they successfully mature, but also widely visible in the culture and throughout a person's lifetime. Joseph Campbell identifies the appearance of the mentor as an identifiable stage in the hero's journey, which he understood to be a kind of underlying form, maybe something like a template, though subconscious, giving rise to diverse legends throughout history and across the globe. Significantly, Campbell used the hero's journey monomyth as a basis for comparing diverse religions and their scriptural stories, in which the wise teacher makes frequent appearance, And again, Campbell sees the wise teacher in myth and fable as representing something fundamental inside us, something about not only human experience, but also human personality. In other words, this figure is central to our storytelling and myth-making because we need them. While the importance of the figure of the inner teacher has been widely acknowledged by important thinkers over many centuries, by everyone from Socrates to Brené Brown, there are significant differences in how they conceive of it, especially in terms of where it resides or where it comes from. Many UUs know about the inner teacher through the beloved educator, Parker Palmer, raised in the Quaker tradition, who conceives of the wise teacher as a representation of the inner divine, a spiritual conception of it as innate to humans. Socrates, in contrast, whom some credit with the first naming of this figure, thought of it as simply the sum total of his own learned wisdom, a more psychological conception of it as acquired. I think it's helpful to understand that we need not believe in God, that is, God the Father, or even God as something else altogether. We need not believe in God to appreciate the importance of the inner teacher. Theism is not antithetical to, but is also not necessary for understanding this figure. And we can think of it as either innate to us, as acquired over time, or both. It puts me in mind of a friend, a UU, who, having begun a 12-step program and needing to describe her higher power to her group, decided to use her own Catholic confirmation name as the name for her higher power. I always thought this a beautiful representation of how the inner divine is both inherent and received. Maybe you're already acquainted with your inner teacher. Perhaps you're already fast friends. Or maybe you have never imagined them. As part of our service today, I'd like to offer an exercise, a brief guided meditation to help you meet them or see them again. You can think of this meeting as a path to renewal, or just as an inward reflection on your life adventure, a way of representing yourself to yourself. If you would please just sit facing forward in your seat with your arms and legs in a relaxed position, and close your eyes, or if you prefer, lower your lids to look at a spot on the floor or a seat back in front of you. And then please just pay attention to your breathing as you inhale and exhale. Notice for a moment how your breath sustains you, whether you allow yourself to pay attention or not on a regular basis. Notice with gratitude how your breath sustains you. We're going to take a little journey in our minds together, so I want you to know if you should end up someplace you don't like, don't stay there. If that should happen, go someplace else in your mind, somewhere that makes you happy, or come on back to this room and open your eyes. Now, with eyes closed or lids lowered, picture a place of learning. It can be indoors or outside. It can be a place you know or a place of your imagination. It should be a place where you feel relatively free to be yourself, a place where you can share your imperfections and challenges. Now picture in this place a teacher. They may be there already, or perhaps they'll be arriving shortly. They may be someone older or younger than you, someone you've known, living or dead, or someone of your imagination. They should be someone with whom you feel ready to learn. Introduce yourself to your teacher and let them know you are glad to be here in this place of learning together. Now let your teacher know that you are thinking about the season just passing and the season soon beginning. It might be a season of the year or a season of life. Take a moment to reflect on the season most recently behind you and what may be coming to you in the season ahead. Now ask your teacher for a word that will help guide you in the coming season. They might write it on a chalkboard, in the sand or the snow, or whisper it in your ear. However they deliver it, once you have received your word, thank your teacher for this gift and hold it in your mind for a moment. How does it resonate? Then thank your teacher for meeting you in this place. Know that you can return to this place of learning anytime you wish to visit with them. And then when you're ready, recall this sanctuary, feel the support of the chair beneath you, and open your eyes. Now take a moment to turn to someone near you, maybe one or two other people near you. You don't have to share anything if you don't want to about your place of learning or your teacher or your word. You can if you wish, but you don't need to. But regardless, maybe share just a bit about how it was to do that exercise. Was it easy? Happy? Was it challenging in some way? We'll take 3 minutes total for this conversation. I'll let you know when a minute has passed, and again at 2 minutes, and then I'll ring a bell when your time is up. Make sure everyone gets a chance to share. Raise your hand if you need a conversation partner. Go. Testing. Oh, there I am. So, now perhaps you've met your inner teacher or sage or mentor. Meditation is one way to reach this important figure, or in quiet reflection with others, perhaps like the conversation you've just had. And I imagine there are ample opportunities for such conversations here at Rockford UU. Other means, according to Palmer, include reflecting on poetry or stories from some of the great spiritual traditions that raise critical questions about our lives, journaling, walks in the woods, and all the ways that human beings have of becoming more reflective. As a lifelong UU, I have been doing a version of this meditation my whole life, since I was 6 years old. And I have led other UUs in this and other similar practices over the course of my life. As I have done so, they have often reported to me significant learning experiences with other church members. Our young people, for example, often point to their religious education teachers, mentors, and other congregants they've encountered. My inner teacher often appears to me as a grade school science teacher, Arita Taylor, who, as it happens, was also a UU at my home congregation in Deerfield. And our adults also find their inner teachers represented by those around them here at church. Indeed, I have heard from our religious educators more times than I can count how much they learn from the students they are teaching. And this is hardly to be wondered at, as they deliberately put themselves in conversation with young people who bring so much wisdom to the discussion. This is sacred work, friends. What an honor it is to occupy the place of wise teacher in another's mind. Our congregations build very special relationships, perhaps most deliberately in our religious education and faith formation programs, but in many other places as well, bringing us wonderful gifts of learning and self-discovery. Maybe for some of us, especially for those of us who think of our beloved community as our higher power, or who think of God as love itself, our inner teachers collectively, in conversation with one another, are a good way to think about the holy or the divine or God. My inner teacher teaches me, but also, ultimately, you. Your inner teacher teaches you, but also, ultimately, me. When we learn to be quietly reflective with ourselves and one another, there is so much deep learning we can do. Together, we gather wisdom from within ourselves and from one another as we grow to become more loving. I want to close my words today with this important thought. We are always, in everything we do here, teaching one another about what it means to be Unitarian Universalist. Whether in or out of class, at worship or at coffee hour, in moments of public witness or in our committee meetings, even at our congregational annual meetings, we are teaching one another about our faith. May we proceed accordingly. May we tend to our inner teachers, our own and one another's, so that wisdom guides our experience here with one another and peace finds a home in us. May that wisdom help us to move through discomfort toward respect, compassion, kindness, and love. And may we find ourselves centered, grounded, and prepared to face together in our shared wisdom, whatever the future may bring.
I listen to the forest.
This story is The Messiah is Among Us by Father Francis Dorff. A monastery had fallen on hard times. It was once part of a great order which, as a result of religious persecution, lost all its branches. It was decimated to the extent that there were only 5 monks left in the mother house, the abbot and 4 others, all of whom were over 70. Clearly, it was a dying order. Deep in the woods surrounding the monastery was a little hut that the rabbi from a nearby town occasionally used for a hermitage. One day it occurred to the abbot to visit the hermitage to see if the rabbi could offer any advice about what might save the monastery. As he approached the hut, he saw the rabbi standing in the doorway, as if he had been awaiting the abbot's arrival, his arms outstretched in welcome. They embraced like long-lost brothers. The 2 entered the hut, where they sat quietly for a time, and then spoke quietly of deep things. The time came when the abbot had to leave. They embraced. Then the rabbi said, "You and your brothers are serving God with heavy hearts." He said, "You have come to ask my counsel. I will give it to you, but you can repeat it only once, and after that, no one must ever say it aloud again." The rabbi looked straight at the abbot and said, "The Messiah is among you." For a while, all was silent. The rabbi said, "Now you must go," and the abbot left without a word and without ever looking back. The next morning, the abbot called his monks together. He told them he had received counsel from the rabbi who walks in the woods, and that the teaching was never again to be spoken aloud. Then he looked at the group of assembled brothers and said, "The rabbi said that the Messiah is among us." The monks were startled by his declaration. When the other monks heard the rabbi's words, they wondered what possible significance they might have. "The Messiah is among us? One of us here at the monastery? Do you suppose he meant the abbot? Of course, it must be the abbot, who has been our leader for so long. On the other hand, he might have meant Brother Thomas, who is undoubtedly a holy man. Certainly he couldn't have meant Brother Elrod. He's so crotchety. But then, Elrod is very wise. Surely he could not have meant Brother Philip. He's too passive. But then, magically, he's always there when you need him. Of course he didn't mean me. Yet supposing he did. Oh, Lord, not me. I couldn't mean that much to you, could I?" As they contemplated in this manner, the old monks began to treat each other with extraordinary respect, on the off chance that one of them might be the Messiah. And on the off chance that each monk himself might be the Messiah, they began to treat themselves with extraordinary respect. Because the forest in which the monastery was situated was beautiful, people occasionally came to visit the monastery, to picnic or to wander along the old paths, most of which led to the dilapidated chapel. They sensed the aura of extraordinary respect that surrounded the 5 old monks, permeating the atmosphere. They began to come more frequently, bringing their friends, and their friends brought friends. Some of the younger men who came to visit began to engage in conversation with the monks. After a while, one asked if he might join, then another, and another. Within a few years, the monastery became once again a thriving order, and, thanks to the rabbi's gift, a vibrant community of life and love. Please rise in body or spirit, and we'll sing hymn number 352, Find a Stillness.
Stillness,
Remain risen for the benediction. From Patrick Merlin said, "Love is the only magic. It enriches the giver as it nourishes the object. It serves the instant and washes over the ages. It is as particular as the moon and as universal as the heavens. If returned, it is multiplied, yet spurned, it is not diminished. It is as lusty as the rutting stag, but as chaste as the unicorn's pillow. It comes alike to the king on his throne and the cut purse in the market. If you would have magic, place faith in love or nothing."
And now, while Barb extinguishes our chalice, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment which we carry until we meet again, I invite you to join hands for our closing blessing. If touch is uncomfortable or private for you, just keep your hands where they are, trusting that others respect your choice. Now let us sing our closing song.
I